Segabits presents Sega Talk, a podcast talking all things Sega! With your hosts, George and Barry.
Look, it's a giant talking egg. I'm not talking to you. I'm talking to the master here. Say what?
Hello and welcome to Sega Talk episode number 42, not number 2. Already screwed up. I'm your host George, and with me is Barry.
Ahoy!
And today we're going to be talking about pirating, adventures, and even a little bit of romance. And that romance is mostly me gushing about this game. So step 6 feet away, please, while we talk about Overworks, Skies of Arcadia, and GameCube JRPG masterpiece. Well, it was a Dreamcast and GameCube masterpiece. And yeah, I did say masterpiece. And you know what's funny? I actually went into this looking for a bad review of this game. Could not find it. Are you surprised about that? Because,
No, not at all.
I feel like a lot of people that when they look back on this game, they kind of complain about the random battles. But I guess back then it was just the norm, you know, with Dragon Quest and Final Fantasy VII being so popular. So I was surprised that there wasn't a couple of those scores. But the GameCube version is obviously so more popular. It almost feels like sometimes when I hear people talk about the game, every time I read an interview, the person doing the interview was like, I grew up with the GameCube version. Are you surprised about that one?
Not at all.
Okay.
You can't surprise me.
Never. They never surprise them. As always, if you like the podcast and you want to support us, you can check us out on patreon.com/segabits. We also, if you guys want to help us, you can share this podcast. I mean, growing the audience is more important in our opinion. And that's it. And also a review on iTunes. I forget about iTunes, right? It exists. So
make it good.
Barry, like we always start these off.
What?
What is your history with Skies of Arcadia, the super long JRPG?
As with most Dreamcast games, I followed it through the official Dreamcast magazine. I would read about the very early impressions from Japan when it was Eternal Arcadia. I would, pick up every tidbit if the writers of the magazine were excited, I was excited, and I would get the game. And so, lucky me, I picked this up. I believe, what was the other game I got around the same time? Grandia 2, right?
Yeah.
These released very close to each other, and they are both kind of the only big RPGs on the Dreamcast, outside of maybe, what's that one? Evolution. Remember that in Evolution 2?
Yeah, I do remember those.
And so, yeah, my history was basically like I wanted to play the best of the best, and I wanted to play the games that utilized, as much as it did. So I believe this game had DLC with the modem. This game had the VMU support, so those things alone made me really want to pick it up. And as far as if I played the whole thing, no, I haven't. And it's one of those games I've always gone back and played a little bit over the years, but I've never been an RPG guy. I can honestly say that I've probably only beaten 2 RPGs in my life.
Yeah.
And even those are kind of a stretch. One is Project Cross Zone. The other one's Shenmue. Shenmue and Shenmue 2, but those don't count as RPGs.
No.
So it was really long, and I don't have time.
Yeah. To me, I bought Grandia 2. I remember that one, and I remember being really into the combat system of that game. I thought it was pretty cool that they had that a little clock thing, where you take turns, and if your guy has more speed, he goes around across the. There's a little line, right? And I thought that was cool, and I was really into it. And then I bought this game, and I was not impressed at first because I got stuck right away. I don't know why. Right away in the island, I got stuck, and I just went, I'm not playing anymore. Screw this game. I only got it at the time for $20. And then one summer, I was like, I'm gonna beat that game. I want to see what all the raves about. Like you said, all these magazines were calling this the return to form for Sega's RPGs. So I was like, I have to beat it. So one summer, I literally just sat there, and I remember like kind of being frustrated because I'm like you, right? Like at this time, I just wanted to play arcade games that were fast. I wanted to get through it as quick as possible to find out what was next. So I never really grinded like other people do in these games. So I was always under leveled. So I would like get to a point like in a boss where I would save it before, and then I'm like, oh, I can't go back and grind anymore. Well, I'm stuck here. I'm not going to start all over again. So I would just like figure out a way to like chip in the system. That's what I remember like doing most of my summer, just trial and error until I figured out a couple of ways to like, okay, can I cheapen this move out? Like if I use this guard, it doesn't do any damage, but if you know what I mean? And then like trying to cheap out the turns until I got a turn where the bad guy wouldn't do massive damage on me, then I would do massive damage, you know? It was just it was ridiculous. That's not the way to play a game though. It was very frustrating. So let's talk a little bit about the game. In 1999, Overworks showed off the game to the public. It was called Project Ares, and along with it, they really like hyped up the fact that the Phantasy Star developers were a part of this at the time, because it was led. So let's look at the Skies team. It was led by Rikio Kodama, who everybody knows her kind of now as the Sega JRPG queen. Can I say that? She worked on Phantasy Star 1 through 4. She also obviously did Skies. She also did Magic Knight Ray Earth, which is a super rare Sega Saturn game. So, I mean, you guys could. I recommend you guys playing it, but buying it, I mean, you guys could get the ISO online, obviously. And she also did Seventh Dragon, which is the latest Sega JRPG. Executive producer was Noriyoshi Oba, who worked on Revenge of Shinobi, Streets of Rage 1 through 3, and a few other games. He's a big wig at Sega now. And I think this guy's the most important part of the game. It was directed, and like some of the scenes were like written by Shuntaro Tanaka, who he was a senior designer, and he also went on to direct the first game of Valkyria Chronicles, which is a lot like this game in a way that the world is kind of like it's his take on World War II and the fantasy world and what happened in World War II. This is kind of like his anime version of the Age of Exploration. But yeah, at the time, so during this time, JRPGs were taking a really dark tone because of the success of Final Fantasy VII. So every single game became more and more darker, dealing with darker themes and emo characters. But this game was more lighthearted, carefree, and optimistic. Did you play a lot of JRPGs during this time period in the late 90s, early 2000s? And did you notice that this game was taking a different approach compared to like Sony PlayStation RPGs?
I did not play a lot of JRPGs, but I definitely paid attention to what was coming out. I guess at the time I couldn't like watch videos or playthroughs, but I'd see friends playing them. I had a friend who was really into Final Fantasy VII, and he was playing. What was 8 and 9 were released at this point, right?
Yeah, it was 9 came out around 98 or 99. Yeah. Right,
and so I was seeing all those games, and you know they looked interesting. They looked quirky. I thought they looked kind of cutesy, if anything. I see how they're dark, but when you look at the gameplay itself, like with the big heads and the little bodies, you know, it's definitely the Final Fantasy VII remake. That's dark looking, but the original one not so much. But I definitely was sensing a trend towards more realism. Grittiness, darkness. I mean, Squaresoft especially were making a lot of darker looking games. And so to see a game that embraced blue skies, and despite pirates, it was very like lighthearted, which I think, you know, you look at the Pirates of the Caribbean movies coming around those times, and it was like, those were also kind of lighthearted despite some of the storylines they were doing. And it just, for me, it totally fit with Sega, and it felt like a Sega game. And so despite not being into JRPGs, I think a big draw for me was the art style, the bright cheeriness, the openness, and the pirate setting. And I think, I mean, I don't know how the sales were for this game. I don't know if this game would have sold well if it was a dark, gritty pirate game. But I can't imagine it any other way, really.
Yeah, I have to agree with you. I mean, we're going to go into the characters, but Vice is basically kind of a JRPG anime version of Sonic the Hedgehog from Sonic Adventure. It really did kind of fit at that moment with the spirit of Sega and what the Dreamcast was doing. Like, trying to look back, was there that many gritty games on the Sega? I mean, on Sega consoles in general? Like, I can't really think of too many. So, yeah. So to me, it would be like, it just would be out of character for Sega to be like, now you're following an emo kid. He's very sad with no hope for the future. You know what I mean?
Yeah, I would say if I'm thinking of Sega games that don't really fit the more bright, cheery vibe, I'd say maybe Panzer Dragoon comes closest, because despite there being some pretty, exhilarating levels, it's a very like somber and sad series to me. Panzer Dragoon's never been like a happy series. I always get kind of depressed when I play it. It's like a rainy day sort of feeling.
Yeah, I would say that's the closest.
And
yeah.
That's the closest in my opinion. But like, I can't really think of. I mean, when they do, you almost look at it later on and go, "Wait, that's a Sega game."
I guess published ones, but I'm saying like Japan, right? That's what we're counting.
Yeah.
Okay. But one, like you said, one of the notable things about the game that hooked a lot of fans back in the day was the anime art style that you saw on the cover. In the early 2000s, it was the height of the anime boom in America, with Toonami and Dragon Ball Z reaching their heights. I don't know. I think Dragon Ball could still probably get a little higher now that it's still going. But while the game had a few artists making art, the main artist that got credited was Itsuki Yohoshi, who is a female, I guess, artist. But like, honestly, I was looking at her profile online and she hasn't worked on anything outside of this game. She's done like, I guess, amateur manga over there, which is basically like fan, which is based on like Yu-Gi-Oh! And King of Bandits and Hack. So she hasn't got.
Is this her art?
This is supposed to be her art on the cover, but the thing is, there's other art. No, the art I send you right now on Discord is the art we're going to talk about. There's another artist that did a bunch of concept artwork called Shinichi Muraoka, who worked on King of Fighters 94, and that's his concept art that I sent you on Discord. And as you can see, this is his take on it, so you could see if somebody else did the art on the game, what it could have looked like. Yeah. And as you can tell, it's totally different. I mean, what's your opinion on his take on the characters compared to what we got in the end? Like, as you can tell, there's like a Grim Reaper thing going on here.
Yeah, it's interesting. I mean, looking at his art here, obviously it's concept art, it's not finished, but there's a very kind of like high school quality to it.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? Like, I'm looking at it, and honestly, it looks like something I mean, no offense to him, but like some American high school kid did back in the late 90s. Like, it looks good, but it doesn't look like something I'd look at and go, oh, that's official Skies of Arcadia concept art.
Definitely not Skies of Arcadia, right? Like, even the characters, I don't know if people are watching this, but he did a like colored version of all three characters that look exactly like the game, but his take on them, and they look kind of like King of Fighter characters. You see that on the top?
Yeah, okay, so his finished art looks really great. So I can see now this is probably super sketchy stuff just for him.
Yeah.
But yeah, I remember seeing that art that you're showing there, that like his take, and I was like, it looks weird. I don't like that. I don't like it as much.
It looks like if King of Fighter characters were cosplaying as Skies of Arcadia characters.
Right. Especially with the Pippi Longstocking hair there. Like, it does not work when it's like a fully grown looking woman.
Yeah, it only kind of works when it's this anime over-the-top drawing, right? Like, the proportions are so weird when they're human-like. So, obviously,
Interesting.
Like we talked about in the past, or we literally just talked about, Shintaro Tanaka was actually majored in history, which is kind of like not a like. I've noticed a lot of these people that work at Sega are like, oh, I mean, I like video games, so I applied, but I was a engineer, a space engineer, rocket engineer, but Sega hired me to make games, and now I make anime games. He was obviously influenced by the real-life Age of Discovery that happened in the 15th century through the 17th century in real life. While I almost went through a bunch of the discoveries you can make in the game, basically when you get your ship in the game, right? Like the game is typically kind of like a traditional RPG, right? You walk around on the land, but once you get your ship, you can go around exploring the sky, right? And you can make discoveries. And there was over, I think, 60 discoveries in the Dreamcast version. And it kind of added lore to the game. There was a bunch of discoveries. What did you think about this kind of gameplay mechanic? And do you think it kind of like, I don't know, like did it leave a lasting impression on you? Did you want to explore more? Or do you think it could have been implemented better?
No, I like the discovery system. To be honest, that's probably what I did more of, just because, you know, I'd pop back in over the years and revisit my save, and I was not invested in the story because it might have been a year since I watched a cutscene.
Yeah.
So I would see what the next step I'd have to do is, but I'm like, do I really want to fight a big boss, or do I want to like fly around and find some of these discoveries? And it kind of reminds me of another kind of open world game, Red Dead Redemption, where there are things you can do in that game and you never have to complete. I mean, you should complete the game because that's the point, but you can just kind of fly around, or in that case, you know, ride your horse around and just discover things, really. Just find cool little interesting things going on and feel fulfilled. And I feel like if they were ever to revisit this game, it might be kind of cool to beef that side up a little more, so that you could not only play through the story, but you could also treat it a little more, maybe not as an open world game so much, but make people feel a little bit more fulfilled when they are doing that sort of thing.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I would say that, like, they did a good job, because I remember doing a lot of that and being really impressed when I found, like, I think there's, like, these islands you would find. I was like, oh, man, that's actually really cool. And some bosses, creatures. But a lot of the game kind of had way too much random encounters on the Dreamcast, at least, where I would be like, oh, man, I want to go, but how many fights am I going to get into before I get to this part of the map to explore? So that was kind of a problem, I would say. I would say that if they ever bring it back, they could look at a game like Grandia 2 or Dragon Quest, where, like, the enemies, or Yakuza, where you could actually see the enemies run at you and you could run away or ship away.
Yeah.
That would be cool, but this is back in the old days. I mean, if we ever get a sequel, I'm pretty sure that's something that's going to be thought about a lot. So let's talk about the story. Talking about stories in JRPGs is hard for a lot of reasons, mostly because some of the important plot points that happen hours within these JRPGs are kind of part of the learning curve and exploration. Like, I feel like if I told you half the story, it'd be like, oh man, the first disc, I didn't discover anything, and it would kind of take away from your experience of the game. So I will read the back of the box and see what Sega of America kind of try to get you in with. Follow the adventures of Vice as he journeys through uncharted skies to discover new continents and explore mystic ruins. Accompanied by Aika and Fina, he will wage epic battles against savage monsters, evil pirates, and powerful enemy nation. An RPG experience unlike any other awaits you. While the back of the box isn't lying, it kind of dismisses the whole thing about the moonstones that you have to gather, which is 6 of them, each having a color and each being part of a continent. So that means you have to explore these continents and cultures. And it also, the mysterious girl Fina, who is obviously attached to these stones. It's kind of hard to put all that stuff in the back of a box, right? So, what was your thoughts on the, I guess, storyline? Like, to be honest with you, it's like a JRPG Sonic the Hedgehog, right? In a way, because you're still looking for these moonstones, stones, right? Or crystals, or...
Yeah, right. And around this time, there was Sonic Adventure, there was Power Stone. So I felt right at home playing this game. Nothing really jumped out. And like you said earlier, Vice was really like Sonic Adventure Sonic.
Yeah.
Right, which is really interesting. You bring that up because wasn't it when we interviewed Roger Craig Smith, who is the current voice of Sonic, we brought up that he voiced Vice during his cameo in Valkyria Chronicles?
Correct. Yeah.
So that's a weird tie, isn't it?
Yeah.
Like, they're like, who is the best voice for Vice? How about the future Sonic the Hedgehog?
Perfect.
So, I mean, the story didn't wow me, but it also just felt very... okay, so I'll ask you this. As someone who played a lot of RPGs, did it seem kind of samey and uninteresting in terms of just how the characters were relating to each other and just the whole... I'm not talking about the air pirates or anything. Strip all that out, but does it seem very, like, generic JRPG to you?
So I would say it's very like lighthearted, stereotypical JRPG. But at this point in my life, like I didn't watch that many animes, and the ones I did were like, I remember going to school and then some kid will pull out a VHS tape. It's like, dude, you ever hear about this movie? It's a adult only, whatever, and it's like a psychological thriller with nudity in it, right? And you're like, oh no, like that's the kind of anime that I was like would watch when I was younger. And like so when I play this game, I like the characters. Sure, they're a little stereotypical, but I liked that Fina was like some sort of hothead girl that would always tell you the truth, and they were kind of stereotypical, but I didn't find any of them annoying. Sometimes I'll play like a Square Enix game, and I'm like, oh man, this character that's talking to me is just annoying. Like, why is he with me in the part? I've never felt like that with any of the characters here.
Right. Yeah. So in saying that and asking that, so like for me, like, yeah, if the game actually is stereotypical or generic for people who have played a lot of JRPGs, for me as someone who has not, it's like I was like, oh, this is great. You know what I mean? Because I haven't seen all of that. So I'm not really, it doesn't feel like same old to me, at least in terms of the character types in the game. So, I think it works great, but I could see people who have been like, oh, I've played over 10,000 RPGs in my life,
I put in I put in 1,000 gazillion hours into Dragon Quest VII, and I know exactly every single plot.
I gotta ask, how do people do that? Because I'm looking at the math, and there's only 24 hours in the day. Like, how do people... Like, how is it that right now, in our little Discord, there are people going, well, I just finished the latest Resident Evil, and I'm like, you also finished every single Yakuza game. How are you doing this?
Magic and a lot of free time.
I don't understand it. It's like a lifestyle I don't have.
It's like, I don't know. I guess a lot of people right now are bored right now with the COVID-19.
I guess.
But
pre-COVID, too. Like, I gotta be honest. Like, when... Sometimes people call me out like, Barry, you haven't played that many games. I'm like, I've played a lot of games, but I have not completed every single RPG that I've touched, and I don't know where these people are coming from.
I see some streamers where like they'll ask them, have you played this game in this series? And the guys all know, and I'm like, dude, this guy just does this for a living, and his audience is like, I play more games than you, and I'm like, this guy's job is to play games. That shouldn't be a good thing, right? But I do agree that some of these games take a long time. Last night I was playing Dragon Quest VIII, and like. Just on the 3DS, because I haven't played 3DS in a long time. And I swear to God, like, I didn't go to sleep until 4 in the morning by accident because I didn't keep track of time. So you should take sometimes JRPGs little by little, like, just put an hour timer because sometimes your time goes away. So let's look at some of the characters. The first character we're going to be looking at is Vice. You remember what this young man looks like. He's the main character of the game, 17-year-old boy or young man who is determined to become a pirate captain and see the edge of the world. Flat Earthers are very proud of this game, as you can tell. His character is a lot like Sonic, like I said. He's always there to help his friends, no matter what. Vice's character wears blue in the game because he was born on May 7th, and May's color's blue. That's something that you'll start noticing. Every single character has a color based on the month they were born. Also, a trivia hint: you could take off his goggles during the battle if you press right, left, up, down, right, and left during battle. He looks really weird, by the way, so don't do it. What do you think about his character design? And like, he has these like long boots, the blue coat with the little like scarf, the little red scarf, and the one eye patch. Obviously, when you're a pirate, you have to have a cool eye patch, right?
Right. I think his character design is very cool. I really like the sleeves that are disconnected and have these like little
Clips?
buckles.
Yeah, there you go.
I don't know if you've ever worn like jackets or pants where like there's a zipper that runs all the way around and you can take the bottom part of the pants off and they become shorts. Like it kind of reminds me of like the pirate version of that. But no, I've drawn Vice quite a bit when I was in high school. He's a cool character. He kind of reminds me of a cross between like Beat and a pirate.
Yeah, it's weird.
He looks a lot like Beat when you look at him.
It's weird because we just literally compared him to Sonic Adventure Sonic and Beat. It's like the Dreamcast had this like motif for their heroes, right?
Yeah. Like just look at him. Like replicate that eye patch thing. Put it on the other one. Like he's Beat basically. He's got the short brown hair. He's got the little smirk.
Next,
yeah, it's a character type.
Next, we got Aika, who is childhood friends of Vice and also a Sky Pirate. She puts a lot of trust in Vice and thinks very highly of him. She is cheerful and energetic. She's straightforward and frank as well. Her main weapon is a boomerang and quite honestly looks a lot like Sonic Boom's stick character design.
Sticks, yeah.
Yeah, and her color is yellow because she was born September 3rd. What do you think about her character, and do you agree with me? Does she look like Styx?
Oh, yeah. I remember when Styx was first revealed, people were like, oh, wow, Skies of Arcadia reference, which I wonder if that was actually something they planned on.
Even if they didn't, though, it would be pretty smart of them to, like, just go, this is obviously Skies of Arcadia. I know you guys hate the new redesign, so yeah, of course it's a...
Right. But no, I like Aika's design. I like the Pippi Longstocking hair. I think she's got a very... I like her little smirk. She's kind of a smart ass, at least in the artwork. And yeah, I think she's a great character design. Let's get to the greatest character design, though. No.
Fina, you don't like her?
I think she's boring.
She's a mysterious girl, which she's just wearing a white dress, not very mysterious to me.
It's not mysterious.
And she runs away with Vice and the Valuian Empire. They're chasing her because she's obviously part of this ancient weapon, and she knows about information about the moonstones or crystals and the legendary treasures. So yeah, I don't know. Her character is whatever. Her main color is silver because she was born December 1st. She's something, right? What do you think about her?
I just think it's a boring character design. She looks like your typical like RPG priestess, really.
Like the healer. She's about to heal somebody.
Yeah, just I don't know, just nothing exciting. I mean, I'm looking at these characters as like from my memory in high school, and I'd be like drawing them, and if I was ever doing like a group picture of Vice, Aika, and Fina, I'd always get to Fina, and I'm like, what does she look like? And I'd have to look it up and be like, oh,
ew, who is this person?
Put her in the background. I don't hate her. It's just, like within the game, I like her. I like her character. I like that she can heal me, but just, nothing too exciting.
Maybe make her like, I don't know, having some like old ancient, like, I don't know, maybe even an alien. That would have been sick, but oh well, whatever. I mean,
well, like I'm thinking of like kind of a contemporary at the time. Final Fantasy X had that woman whose dress was made of belts. Remember that?
Yeah.
I thought she was awesome. I drew her a lot, and I hardly played Final Fantasy X. And so I kind of, compare her to Aika, and it's just Aika's so boring. Like, if you gave her a dress made out of belts, then I'd be all for it.
Yeah. So now we got Cupal or Cupal or whatever you say, the little sperm thing, that mysterious creature who looks like a silver ghost, a sperm-like being, is what I put it, is Fina's weapon. The name actually came from an official Sega Dreamcast, Japanese obviously, competition that ran from like Volume 1 through Volume 4 of the magazine. The name was announced in Volume 8. Other names were like Pun Amu and Rhubarb was the other ones, the runner-ups. This little sperm boy right here has a really interesting like mechanic. His mechanic, where you have to like transform him by feeding him charms and moon shards, and he will change to different weapons. He is the strongest weapon in the game when you like evolve him all the way. In the Dreamcast version, he took I think 800 damage or 500 or something. And like in the GameCube, they like massively like took it down because it was too much. So pretty cool. It reminded me of Chow's at the time. What do you think about this? Because it changes, right?
Yeah, it reminds me of Chow's or Mags for the PSO fans. I thought he was fine. I never really felt like I mastered him, though. I think I needed to get further in the game to really make use of Cupal.
Yeah. And Dakma, well, I had to put up his picture. He's a old sailor that Vice meets. He lost his eye and arm during an encounter with Rakanam, a boss creature that you fight within the game. The creature took his son. He's obviously Moby Dick's main character of the book. Or I guess technically the whale is the main character, right? He is a big boy with an artificial arm and an eye patch. His color is green because he was born February 25th. And I don't know where they got these colors. I looked these colors up on the internet, and I don't know if birthdays have colors, but...
It must be a Japanese thing, because I looked up my color while we were talking, and I'm supposed to be yellow, but they said yellow was September, so that's not right. It must be a Japanese thing.
I'm wondering if it's like in-universe thing. I don't know.
Yeah, no, but I loved Dakma, or whatever his name is.
Yeah.
What is it? Darkma
or something like that, yeah.
Yeah, it's interesting, too, because with a lot of these names, there isn't really dialogue in the game that says it. So you just kind of look at the word and say it in your head, and that's how you move with it. So for me, it was always like, Rachnum was what he was always talking about. Oh, Rachnum took my eye.
Yeah.
I really liked him. I thought he was the most piratey of all the characters. I thought he was really cool.
Yeah, and it's kind of weird to get a fat, bearded old man as like a companion in a JRPG, right?
Yeah.
And we already looked at the women, but one thing I did like about this game is that they didn't over-sexualize the women in this game, and they kept, or even men, because like there's some Final Fantasy games where I'm like, these males are sluts. Like, they're treating them like sluts. I don't know if I like this at all. I feel disgusted. Anyway.
Ooh.
Enrique. Look at this guy. Enrique is a crown prince of the Valuian Empire, who is basically the villains of the game. He obviously does not agree with what they're doing, his nation, so he leaves and he joins you. He has a strong sense of justice, and he wears purple because he was born March 4th. As you could tell, he's kind of like Tails. He's like, I'm a little scared. I don't know we could do that. He, like right away when you see him in the pictures, that's Tails as a pirate. One thing that we didn't really discuss though, some of these people like Enrique and I can't think of one. Well, Fina, obviously, they have pets, right? Not every character has pets though. Like the Aika and Vice don't have pets. Like, I wish each one had their own pet companion, right? Like to go with them. Like the idea that like pirates all have like a bird, a special like species of bird. So yeah, that's because I know that the next guy we're talking about, Gilder, he is the coolest pirate, this side of the edge of the world. He is a womanizer sleazebag whose motto is live as freely as one pleases. He searches the skies for treasure, women, and excitement. He wears red because he was born July 20th, and I find this guy to be the coolest design. He has the red king's coat, kind of looks like like he's about to drink out of a chalice. He has a bird on his shoulder that's a parrot that smokes. Not in the American version, though. Only the Japanese version because it was censored here.
Interesting.
We'll talk about that. But yeah, his design I think is the coolest. His character is just a typical party dude, pirate guy that always has women around him, kind of a thing. The cool guy. Yeah. So let's talk a little bit about the gameplay in the game. All right. The game had a lot of things going. Like it had obviously we talked about the turn-based battle, the dungeons, and the overworld where you could walk, when you walk normally. It was all like a JRPG, nothing special there. But they had other unique aspects in the game, like manning a flying ship and getting past sky rifts. While we know that on-foot battle system was very simple and like a traditional battle system, the game really changed it up with ship-to-ship combat, which was more rare in the game. A lot of people compare the ship battles to those of Panzer Dragoon Saga. The game's ships system allowed you to have multiple turns in one action, which kind of forced you to think ahead a little bit. Like, okay, my damage, I have to damage this guy, but do I want to heal myself too? And I think you got 3 or 4 turns depending on your turrets. But the game had a little warning system where you got colors. So if it was green, that means there was no advantage. Damage wouldn't be critical. Like the enemy does not have critical damage coming in. Yellow was an unadvantage, warning that the enemy might have a strong attacks coming in. Red was super hazard. The enemy's going to be going all out on you, so be defensive.
I hated that.
A critical C with an exclamation mark. That basically meant that it was basically them turning yellow, so you could do something critical here and in the battle at that moment. Right. There was more into it, but I don't want to get too into it because we're going to be going. We're barely 1/3, 2/3 of the way through the notes here. So, what do you think about the ship battle systems? And did it take you a while to get the hang of the combat and I guess pre-plan?
It took me a little while, but once I got into it, I really enjoyed the ship battles, probably a lot more than the ground pirate to pirate battles that were going on with the swords and stuff. I remember hearing at the time in reviews people comparing it to Panzer Dragoon Saga, so I was like, oh, I'd probably like that game if I played it because of this system. And yeah, you're right. Like you would have to really plan ahead, and I kind of like that whole setup for the fighting. So yeah, I mean overall, this is probably the highlight of the game for me. Really, the ship battles. I thought those were really cool, and yeah, I would get really scared when it was super hazard. I was like, this is it. I got into it.
I remember when you get the drill. I remember just being so profane about it. I remember tears in my eyes when I finally got beat the ship that was beating me over and over again, and I did the drill, and I'm like, hope you like that, huh? I remember I got pretty excited about those two. One of the unique aspects of this game was that the Dreamcast version of Skies of Arcadia had a Dreamcast exclusive VMU game called Pinta's Quest, which was very highly influenced by Chocobo World, which is a game within Final Fantasy VII. Once you reach Sailor's Island, or Isle, within the game, and you talk to a young boy named Pinta who tells you he also wants to travel the world, you get Pinta's Quest, a miniature RPG with it's just basically random encounters, and all the items you grind within the VMU you could transfer into the game, so you could technically go on a road trip, do random battles, get some items, and then load it up on your Dreamcast, and then have an advantage when you get in, right? I think it's kind of lore, right? I think the kid became the game, right? And now you're going around the world with him on your VMU playing RPGs. So I mean that's kind of what they're implying. But have you played Pinta's Quest. What is your opinion on
Yes.
it, and are you surprised more RPGs on consoles don't have companion apps to grind items?
I did play it. It was one of the bizarrely one of the reasons I really wanted to pick the game up, because it took advantage of the VMU, and I like games that did that. I thought it was really cool to have this little side story going on where you could collect exclusive items through it. And yeah, it surprises me that there aren't more companion apps, especially now, because you don't need a VMU. You can have your iPhone, or your Android phone. And I know, like, for example, Sega has had Sonic Forces as a game on your phone, but there's no connection there with the home console game. That always confused me. And I know, too, that Phantasy Star Online 2 has a companion app for mobile, but it's not out in America, which I think is, I guess give it time, but I think they should have brought that over, too. It would have been a nice little way to keep people playing the game while they're on the go. So, yeah, I think Pinta's Quest is probably one of the best uses of the VMU on the Dreamcast. So I really like it.
And, I would agree with you. I really liked it, too. I always wish we got more companion apps. I know that, I want to say Yakuza 0, they had like a minigame Vita thing that they released that we never got here. I think it's kind of dumb. Like you said, it's so surprising, right? Like, I see a lot of these games that have companion apps, and it's like its own game, but it's not like just a complimentary app. Like, it's not just like, you get this app and it's just random battles. It's more like it's an actual mobile game that you have to spend money on. It's like, I don't know about that. I like this because it's just so straightforward. You couldn't put ads in a Dreamcast VMU game, thank God. So let's talk about localization changes. This is probably something that I didn't know about coming through this game, because I didn't really care about localization changes. Now you change something so small, like in Persona 5, like a little scene, and now everybody's like, oh no, you ruined the game. This one is Skies of Arcadia had big notable changes in localizations, including the name, which of course, it was Eternal Arcadia in Japan. But it had a ton more changes because Sega gave their translators more freedom to change the things for Western audiences. While the game still has the same plot, the dialogue had been basically rewritten. According to the process, they did a Japanese to English translations, then got rid of the Japanese script, then rewrote the English one completely. For example, in the Japanese versions of Skies of Arcadia, Fina says "Mina-san," which means everybody, over and over as her catchphrase. This was changed to like jokes and other patterns that they made up. Also, the team went on to rename side characters and weapons after the localization and quality assurance team, which I definitely don't agree with that. They could have just kept it the way it was.
Yeah.
The Western the Western release also took out all traces of cigarettes. Shops that sold alcohol now sold Laquia juice, and a character named Belina, which was a stripper in the game, had a more transparent getup. One scene that would now cause controversy, that was kind of glossed over, I guess, because it was just the early 2000s, was when Aika gets kidnapped or imprisoned by Vigoro, a villain in the game. And he basically tries to like force her into having sexual relationships with him. It's kind of played down in the game. I haven't played the Japanese one, but according to I've seen the scene, but I haven't seen the dialogue. They're saying the dialogue's a lot more, implying. There's a lot more implications. And he's also, when Vice finally comes in, the Vigoro guy is shirtless in the Japanese version, so he's already kind of stripped down. That's a little dodgy for me, my dude. I don't mind them changing that. I think they could have just cut that scene altogether. I don't know why they had to have it. But, I guess it's people's opinions. I'm not offended by it. It's just a fictional character, obviously. Outside of this, the game's localization took 4 months, between 80 to 100 hours of work weeks. So they worked each week 80 to 100 hours for the 4 months. And the script ended up being 2,000 pages long. So what's your opinion on the localization changes? Do you think some of them were warranted, some of them weren't?
I mean, toning it down, I get, because the game itself is very cartoonish and cutesy, to have all of this stuff like alcohol and cigarettes kind of goes against that. Then again, I kind of like that. I wish those things were kept in, because it would kind of remind me of, like 1940s cartoons where characters would still drink and, look at sexy women. And I mean, these are pirates, so,
Yeah.
To tone that down is kind of strange. But I do think it was smart to just kind of rewrite the whole script and make it work for English audiences. I'm kind of reminded of Samurai Pizza Cats
Yeah.
a little bit, where they just totally rewrote that script, made it a complete comedy. I mean, that's an extreme, but I think if this game was just a straight up Japanese to English translation, it would not have the charm that it does. And you see that now too with the Yakuza games. They do a lot of I think it's a faithful translation, but sometimes they would prefer to give you something entertaining as an English speaker than something that's just a direct, straight up translation of what's going on in the game.
I will have to agree with you on this one because
Yes!
I agree because I feel like I don't know, man. It's like even Animal Crossing that we have is translated, and even the voices are different. The little they do.
Mm-hmm.
So a lot of people complain about this, and I'm like, at this point, people are translation like English and Japanese are so different. Phrases, little things like that. Even Spanish, which I know, you can't just do direct sometimes. You got to change it up for another audience. And I think if you really, really want to experience Japanese version of a game, you should probably learn Japanese instead of spending all that hours and efforts going on the internet and complaining to people that. Well, I've seen people like literally attack the localization team of Yakuza because they changed stuff. So, come on, dude, just take all that energy, take all that effort, and basically learn Japanese, dude, and do the world a favor. So let's talk about some of the advertisement. Let's talk about the print advertisement. I didn't actually, I didn't link you to this, so I have to get it. But the first one we're going to be looking at is the American ad for. You've seen this one, right? The Skies of Arcadia North American ad for the Dreamcast, the one where it's like
absolutely,
the pictures of Vice, and it says, "You can't change your reputation. No, you can't change your clothes." I don't know. What do you think about that ad? If you can remember it.
From what I remember, I thought they were fine. Dreamcast ads in general at the time were a little hit or miss. I think Phantasy Star Online had some of the best. I think Seaman had one of the worst.
Yeah, that's true.
So, it was kind of all over the place. I thought Skies of Arcadia, by and large, had a generally decent ad campaign. I can't really remember the English ads, though. Perhaps they didn't exist.
Yeah.
For commercials.
No, there was no commercials in America, oddly enough. I was going to send you the physical scans real quick, but man, right? You know what's slow right now?
Oh, don't worry about it.
Sega
Don't worry
Retro
about it.
is slow. Sorry about that. But yeah, the ad is... Yeah, I thought the ad was all right, but like we didn't even talk about this, but there's parts of the game where you did actions where like, come and fight me and do this, and you're like, oh, I'm not ready to fight. And if you left the fight and said, no, I don't want to fight, you got a different reputation and title. And when you went to towns, people would know you by that title, like Vice the Coward, Vice the Legend would be I think the best one. But yeah, they really played that up in the US ad. But I feel like the game was like, I don't know, it did work, but like as a selling feature, that's kind of weird, right? In my opinion, it's kind of a weird selling feature.
Yeah, I guess on one hand, when you look at the ad like that, it's almost like, is this a gameplay feature? Like, do you have a title and it changes?
Yeah.
Which isn't really the case.
There's also this UK ad you want to look at real quick. It just has the UK version of the ad is basically has a ship, and it's just on clouds. If you're listening to this on audio, and it says not every cloud has a silver lining. ...
It's true.
But it kind of tries to hide the anime characters. The American one didn't do that. They had Vice on it. This one, it just looks like a ship game. Like, if I didn't know anything about video games, I just look at it and I'd be, oh, Sega's making a ship simulation game. What do you think about that ad? Like, just having a ship and like some screenshots on the bottom. And like, the screenshots are funny though, because it shows one guy driving the ship, Vice, right? And then it has Gilder with the guns. So it's like they're trying to like purposely like, oh, this one looks cool. This one looks like I don't know. To me, it's like you could have shown more of the art, dude. That's what is selling this game.
Right. Yeah. No, I think this is kind of a weak ad. I think the ideal Skies of Arcadia ad would have the artwork front and center, big logo, and I have my eyes closed because I'm visualizing it, like 3 very large screenshots, each one showing off and telling, like in text below them, a unique and interesting gameplay feature. So it could say like, manage your own ship and crew, take on rivals in real-time battles. And then the other one would be like, use the Dreamcast VMU for a special side adventure and collect exclusive items on the go. And then the third one could be something like, you know, whatever, like explore and make new discoveries over 60 60 like something like that. Like, doesn't that make you want to play the game
more than this? For sure.
Yeah.
And
yeah.
The next ad, I had to send it to you on Discord because you have to see this. It's the United States Skies of Arcadia Legends ad. And you know, they were like, you know, let's get a new artist right here to do the art. What do you think about the art in this game? Like, dude, I gotta zoom in on it so people could see it on the video. But like, God, look at Vice and look at they're like little kid drawings. Like, they look like
that looks like shit.
Yeah.
It looks like a Japanese restaurant's kids menu.
Oh yeah, exactly. Or like a
like if you were in Japan and you're like, can we see the kids menu? And you're like, oh, look at these.
It's like the guy that drew Little Nemo, like broke both his hands and he forgot how to do art. This is how.
Look how far apart Aika's eyes are. Look at that.
That's not right, dude. Like, there has to be something wrong with her.
This is really bad.
I have to agree with.
This makes me hate the GameCube version. I'm sorry.
This is it. This did it. Finally.
The logo too is awful. The GameCube version's logo, terrible. I hate it.
Everybody, you heard this? Terrible. The next ad is it's the UK version of it. It's basically just has like my thing with it. It isn't terrible. This one, I could send it to you, or you can see it on the page. It's right next to it.
I can see it. Yeah.
Yeah. It's but it kind of looks like I did it. Like, you know, sometimes I don't know really that much about Photoshop, so I'll do these weird like background things like this, where I try to like, oh man, let me copy Barry's, and yours looks nice, but mine looks a little off. This is basically me trying to do Photoshop.
Mm-hmm.
I just took the art. It's a little bit better, but there's what is this telling you about the game? Way too much going on.
So I have a lot of problems with this one. First off, like, it has all these like strips, and so it looks like it's maybe trying to tell like a story, like a comic strip.
Yeah.
And then on top of that, they're all different sizes, but there's no real consistency. Like, I guess the first and the third one are the same, but then it's a game with so many characters, and yet you're showcasing Vice, and Vice, and then you have Aika and Fina cropped out, really. Yeah, and too much blue. I can't read the text.
Yeah.
Especially on the bottom where it says the uncharted skies are riddled with hidden. Yeah, it's just. Yeah, it's bad, and the screenshots are so small. They're like postage stamps.
Yeah, they couldn't get them any smaller, I think.
And George, can you tell me who's in all 3 of those screenshots?
Vice. It's like there's only one character in the game.
I see 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6 Vices on one page.
Yeah, it's ridiculous. There's this one where you meet this character on a side mission that's like exclusive, but it's like you didn't really explain that this game has exclusive content. You didn't explain what's new in it, why you should buy it. You didn't even like. I guess you have one score here that it's like it's a good game. Somebody's named Cube told you.
Oh, I hate Cube. Remember that guy?
Uh-oh, he might be listening.
Just kidding.
We also have, I guess we could look at the Japanese ads real quick. I don't know if you want to watch
Yeah, let's
this.
do that. Yeah.
Let me get the interaction going on here. All right.
Ooh.
When you're ready, tell me. The first one on top of
Ready.
Okay.
箱
Let's do it.
この箱開けてみたい。
え
どうなっているか見てみたいんだ。
おい、よせ。
あ、サラダ。
呼んでる風と雲がエターナルアルカディア
Okay. that sell you the game?
It was like, Hako, open the door. Oh.
What do you think about that, dude? It's like, okay,
I mean, I can't understand what they're saying, but let's be honest. Like, it's 9 seconds of no game footage in a 15-second ad.
for sure. And
Come on.
this is the problem when I had with Skies, right? Like all the advertisement was like they set it up to fail, but there's a second commercial we could look at. Maybe this one will save it, right? So tell me when you're ready.
Yeah, let's do it.
Oh, there's more gameplay.
Yeah, this is more like it. I like this. The ship battles, the
大空をかけ
fighting,
る真空管
cool
RPG。
cutscenes, monsters. I remember that big, like, green thing. I forgot what
Yeah.
that was. It was like a monster.
Giga
But yeah, that's
Mesh
cool.
or
I like
whatever,
that one.
Mechs.
Yeah.
Oh no, I almost went down and there was comments that you wanted to read that because I'm on the Sega Bits browser to show
Yeah,
you.
Cube's there.
yeah. So yeah, that's the way they kind of like advertised these both games, right? I mean, both versions of the game kind of had like they were trying to hide stuff. Like they didn't really go all in on it. The advertisement, I think, was weak. I don't know. You would agree with that?
Yeah, I'd say not too strong.
And so let's talk about one thing this game had that other Dreamcast games should have gotten: a limited boxed version. And
Oh, yes.
oh no, can I brag about this, or am I allowed bragging on here?
Oh, do you have it?
Yeah, this is the picture of mine right here. But
Oh, beautiful.
basically, it came with a art book, and I even put the Switch controller for scale. It came with I have it right here. It came with keychains of the different forms of Cupul, a flag, a big art book with a ton of concept art, a key lanyard or whatever those things are called and then like this weird like
Oh, a lanyard.
lanyard and like this weird fake leather choker thing that like looks like something that some girl would wear, but like I'm pretty sure they're trying to imitate the little things that he had on his coat, the little strap with the little logo of the Blue Rogues. And obviously, and it came with a big flag, and obviously the game, the Japanese version of the game that I can't play because I don't know it. Have you seen the Eternal Arcadia Limited Box? What are your thoughts, and what other Dreamcast games do you think deserve this type of treatment? Like, no other games really got this big of a box set.
No, yeah, and I'm thinking about them. So I remember at the time I was always like, I should import one of these, or I should get them off eBay. And this was like maybe 2005, 2006 when the whole kind of like eBay buying collector thing really was kind of hot. And I remember prices weren't bad, but you got to remember, like, at the time they seemed high, but now you look back and you're like laughing at what seemed high at the time.
Yeah.
I think I shared in the Sega Bits Discord pictures from 2011 when I went to a game convention, and my commentary was, Panzer Dragoon Saga is too expensive for $180. You know,
you should have invested, dude. That thing's
I
going
know,
up
right?
higher than the US dollar.
Yeah. Yep. Whoops. And now, looking back, the Eternal Arcadia box is probably the best one that was out at the time. Others I can remember. Sega Gaga had a great one with pins, and I think a themed 8-bit VMU. And then some of the weaker ones was Jet Set Radio. I think it was the De La Jet Set Radio release, and it just had a T-shirt in a big box.
Did you see there's a Shenmue one, but that one only said limited edition on it. I think like it just had a little like the cover was a little different. And the
Right, and it
version.
came. Well, yeah, I was gonna say then. So with Shenmue, I can't really remember what was it. What was it? The jukebox CD? Was that it?
I think that's what it came with, right?
And the American one had that too. So it's not like that special. So yeah, I'd say what other games deserved a limited box release? I would say Shenmue for sure, and then what else was there? What was a big one? I mean, Space Channel 5 had one, but again, it was kind of weak. I think it had like headphones.
I think Jet Set Radio is an easy one,
Oh,
right?
Sonic Adventure. I don't know why that didn't have a big box. I mean, Sonic Adventure 2 had the birthday pack,
But that was for the birthday.
But-
It wasn't like
but that was for the birthday.
yeah.
Yeah.
But it's surprising though that this game got it. And I remember like I don't want to know if it was Dreamcast magazine or EGM, but they had like a preview of when Japanese people stayed in line to buy this version of the game, and they were showing it off. And as a kid, I was like, God, I hate Japan. Like they get all the cool stuff, we get nothing. We get nothing.
Yep.
We get scraps. But yeah. So let's talk a little bit about a little game called Skies of Arcadia Legends. You might have heard this version of the game. It was one of the first ports of the Dreamcast game that was announced after Sega became third party. And it was announced for the GameCube and the PS2. While the game is proudly made in Japan, it said I heard online. I mean, when I was reading this, it said Point of View Software, an American developer, helped them port this over. But then when I read interviews, they like Rikio Kodama says that like it's her director's cut, so I guess they were in charge of it, and they did all like maybe they had this American company doing all the like legwork, like the stuff they don't want to do.
Yeah.
And Sega aimed for a mid-2002 release for both versions, but by April, Sega announced that the PS2 version would be delayed. Then in May, rumors swirled that it was canceled altogether. Sega denied this at the time. A few months later, in August 2002, Sega confirmed that they stopped development on the PlayStation 2 port of Legends in favor of the GameCube port. In hindsight, it's obvious that the PS2 was the JRPG machine. Do you think Sega at the time put too many eggs in Nintendo's basket with this and ports of Sonic 1 and 2?
I mean, as someone who didn't own a GameCube at the time, it was kind of annoying to see so many interesting ports going over there. Especially this one with the new features. It would have been cool if they spread it around. I feel like this game especially deserved a wider release, at least to the PlayStation 2, maybe Xbox. I don't know. But yeah, I was annoyed not to see this one ported elsewhere. It was I mean, looking back, I prefer the Dreamcast one, but this was a decent effort at least.
So let's talk more about what the game had, right? So the team considered Skies of Arcadia Legends a director's cut of the game. And it featured quite a bit of new content that the Dreamcast version, like all the game's swashbuckler ratings, they added 8 new rankings, which is what they advertised in America.
Right.
They also, the GameCube version had less frequent enemy battles, and they gave you more XP per battle. This also came with faster loading. Graphically, the game featured slightly improved character models. They now had individual fingers. But it seems it's a give and take in this area because apparently the GameCube had a not as accurate Z buffer. I don't know what that is. I'm not going to pretend I know, but apparently...
Of course it didn't.
It had a
Nintendo.
64-bit one, and the cool Dreamcast had a 32-bit, which basically meant there was more clipping, the polygons, when they touched. They would clip more on the GameCube version, very slightly. I don't think that's that big of a deal. I think having better models and better loading and less fighting is kind of gives it a little competitive edge on here. I do have a video comparing the graphics of these. Oh, I did have a video, but then I looked at it and I was like, it's not really worth watching because it was like super close.
Right.
The game, they had actually better frame rate. That's what I would say. If you saw slowdown, it would be fixed in the GameCube. The game also offered new side quests called Bounty Hunting at the Sailors Guild, which offered information on bounties that unlocked more and more as you played. The bounty list included 8 different bounties in total. One of these bounties included Vizy, the legend, a trio of traveling entertainers that specialize in doing impressions, who began doing impressions of our trio heroes, and they went around terrifying people and like asking them for money. And
That's funny.
If you're watching the video, I have a picture of them on the thing. They basically like they did a bad job because like they look like evil versions of the characters, right? Vize, the legend.
Yeah.
And it's like he's in red, and like Aika's version has like purple hair. The girl that's like imitating her, not
Yeah.
bad. And they got caught too if you play the game, but. Stuff
I like his face. He's very like like half-lidded.
He's high,
He looks
dude.
sleepy.
Doing
Yeah.
drugs, dude.
Oh, but I'll be honest, their Fina, I like that design a lot more.
Yeah, it looks more. I don't know. It looks cool. I like the black and the red. I think.
I like it.
So yeah, I wish this kind of stuff was like added onto the Dreamcast. I understand it's not, but like if they ever do a re-release, I would love to see like all the stuff together, right? Like have a emulated version of the VMU game if you have to, or a little phone app. But yeah, the GameCube port also extended the number of discoveries in the game. While the Dreamcast featured 64 discoveries, the GameCube added another 24, bringing the total number to 88. That's a lot. While the GameCube port is great and adds a lot of new features, it also has some drawbacks. It didn't have the VMU game Peta's Quest, and it also had lower sound quality. I was gonna play a little clip of it, and I might maybe edit it in or something, but like it's just very like muffled sound, and I think the reason is because they didn't want to put this on 2 GameCube disc.
Right.
Like the Dreamcast had more space. I would say that's probably it. And at this time, there's probably a modded version with the Dreamcast sound, so you can get both if you really want to modify it. And Pika's Quest is not really that needed. It's a nice extra. It does not kill the game, but like you said, you bought it because of that, right?
How dare you? Yeah.
Yeah. Poor. Okay, and so let's talk about other media this game has been in. Even though Skies of Arcadia was created almost 20 years ago, it has been 20 years ago, the franchise has pretty much been put on hold after Skies of Arcadia bombed on the Nintendo GameCube. But in late 2000s, early 2010s, the Skies of Arcadia got some notable cameo appearances. So the first one we're going to be talking about is the one that we got for Valkyria Chronicles, the most popular one, I would say. The game came out in 2008, and it featured Vice and Aika as recruitments, and Fina was kind of like a backup surgeon, so she'd come in the battlefield if you guys died. Unsurprisingly, Shuntaro Tanaka directed both this game and Skies of Arcadia, so it made sense. Vice also had a short anime. In the Valkyria Chronicles anime, there was an episode that had Vice in it. That's cool. Valkyria Chronicles 3 also had him in it, which came out in 2009. They kind of try to like extend his lore. I don't know. It just says basically that he's from he likes adventure and he's from a different he's somewhere far away kind of a thing, you know, hinting. Did you play Valkyria Chronicles, and what did you think of Vice's cameos in these games?
I did a bit, and of course for our Roger Craig Smith interview prep, I did watch videos of his full cameo appearance as Vice, and I thought Vice alone was a cool addition, but knowing that Roger voiced him and then getting to tell him that, and he's like, oh, because if you remember, we told him, and he was like, he had no idea that he was playing a cameo character.
Yeah, like Sega didn't tell him. He just went in.
No. Yeah. He just went in and just played him.
Yeah. He just looked at him and he's like, this is what he sounds like. All right, cool.
Yep.
It worked.
Yep.
The next one we got was in 2012 in Sonic and All-Stars Racing Transformed.
Yes.
It had a big Skies of Arcadia presence. First, we got our boy as a racer, which meant that the character got a brand new model. So let's talk about the model first. What do you think about the model of the 3D model that Sumo Digital created for Vice? Like, they kind of try to like make this new kind of like, I don't know, it kind of look like a. Okay, so my problem with the way that a lot of things in Sonic and All-Star Racing look, they kind of look lifeless randomly, right? Like there's no like their eyes would just look blank, like they would just drive like they had no like emotion on their face, and I felt like Skies of Arcadia was big on the facial like anime expressions, and they didn't really translate that in the game. What do you think? But what do you think about the model?
Yeah, I see what you mean. Like, especially the first All-Stars game and even the tennis game, they did not excel at either 3D character models or animation. They felt very like, I mean, let me see if I can do it like on the camera. It felt like, yay, you know, like, and then when they won a game, they'd be like,
they kind of had like one expression on their face, like they never changed it.
Yeah. And then when they got hit, they'd be like...
And I mean, I guess it's because we're going to be seeing them from the back all the time, and they probably were saving time on this, but I feel like it would have made a big difference.
But, like, you get the Mario Kart 8 memes, and it's like Luigi's like...
They put a lot of effort into that.
You know, like, there's a lot of effort. Yeah, and then you look at All-Stars, and it's just like, Vice won! Yeah,
that's... something they could improve in the future for sure.
Yeah.
And we also got a car that was represented. It was the Delphinus, the ship. It was color coded to look like it. What do you think about the ship? I mean, like that's one of my issues with the game too. Is like they try to redesign sometimes, or sometimes some characters don't have any car. And they try to design one, and I'm like, I don't know if Beat would drive that. Maybe, I don't know. Like,
oh, the De La Custom GG.
Yeah, I don't know. It's like it's kind of strange. It's like some of these, but this one at least has the color of a ship. It's not as long as the ship. That ship's super long. But I mean, I just thought it was okay. It has this weird
it was fine.
It has this weird glim to it. All the game's models and cars have like this weird shine to it. It's kind of weird. Besides that, though. I thought it should have looked rusted, but yeah. Also, Vice got his own racing track called Rogue's Landing, which I'm posting over here. I mean, people could see it if they're watching on YouTube, which is an island where the blue rogues meet and trade. While you race, there's obviously a war between the rogues and their enemy, the Armada. What did you think about this racing track?
I loved it. I liked the flight in the game, and so I really liked how this game combined the flight with the land racing. I don't think there were any boats in this one, which is kind of a plus. The boats were probably my least favorite. So I thought it was really cool to race through the pirate ships, and you flew over these like they were like farms or something. Like, you know, it felt really cool. And you know, for someone who's wanted a sequel to this game, even if I've never finished the first one, it was really neat to see the whole world in 3D. Because, I mean, you think about it, like, yeah, Jet Set Radio had tracks, but we had an Xbox One, or Xbox game with Jet Set Radio Future, which looked really awesome to begin with. But I think Skies of Arcadia, it just never had that next-gen level graphical you know, like representation until then. Yeah. So that was really great. And I just remember, because I mean you remember too, so we were, when Sega was rolling out the game to journalists, like it was a very rare time when we were a part of that. Like we received, I remember we got the email and we were like, oh my God, they're making a sequel, and look, Panzer Dragoon's back, and is that Vice? Oh my God, how do we deal with this? And we're like, we made a forum topic. Do you remember that? And we're like, this does not leave the forum. It was the staff forum. We're like, here's the information. If you want more, we can send it, but you got to be very quiet. Don't tell anyone. And people are like, oh my God, this is so cool. And so it was like, I just kind of feel a special connection to the game in that regard, because Sega actually gave a shit about, you know, cluing us in from day one on the game and giving us previews and everything. So it feels special to me. And this track, I don't remember if this was showcased initially, but I remember Vice being a big deal at the time, for sure.
So I agree with you 100%. Like when I saw this, I freaked. I thought it was insane. I thought it was cool that we could see like the Skies of Arcadia world. At this point, it was like 12 years later on new hardware. It's just really, really awesome. So I looked up what did Rikio Kodama think about this, the game's producer. She said, it was very beautiful, and I was equally touched. I really felt the love and care the staff of the staff towards Skies of Arcadia. So
right, and I think too, didn't Sumo say when they showed some other people from the team, like they cried because they were seeing. I don't remember the exact quote, but like they were seeing their game on modern hardware for the first time, and it was very faithful to the art style. So
it was Shintaro Tanaka, I think, because when they asked her the question in Kotaku, they said, "Oh, well, Shintaro Tanaka loved it. What do you think?" And that's what she asked them.
Oh,
she was also touched. But let's talk about Sonic Universe 45, issue number 45. This one had a massive.
Do I have that?
You probably do have it. This one had a massive transformed it's basically called Racing for the Stars. It came out in 2012. The issue
was it Worlds Unite or Worlds Collide?
No. It was Worlds Unite. It's the one we're going to talk about next. This one is a crossover for All Stars Transformed. Oh. So it was basically a All Star race. And it featured all the characters from Transformed, including Danica Patrick, our favorite Sega hero.
Yes.
So that one, if you guys are looking for Vice in the comic, there's that one. But I actually recommend the next one we're going to be talking about more. Worlds United. In 2015, Archie launched a sequel to Sonic and Mega Man World Collide. Titled Worlds United, which brought a bunch of Sega and Capcom cameos in a 12-part miniseries. One of the franchises that made the cut was Skies of Arcadia. In the comic, Skies of Arcadia world is part of a multiverse, which comes under attack by Sigma, forcing the Blue Rogues to join the other heroes in the unified army.
Right.
What is your opinion on both these crossovers, and do you think maybe in the future IDW will take maybe do some more crossovers with Sega franchises, or you think that's not going to happen?
When these came out, I thought it was really awesome. I remember covering them, though, for the site, and it was a real headache because not only... There were like 4 comics releasing a month, and then there were the alternate covers, and then there was the reveals of the crossovers. And we would like kind of ignore it if it was Capcom based, because that's not really Sega news. But anytime a Sega IP was there was a story, and it was exciting, but it was kind of a headache after a while.
As a guy that collects comics, trust me, man, I understand the headache.
Here, I think I got Vice. You can see him there, right? You see him?
Yeah, he's beautiful.
Yeah. It was a headache to news it, but just the idea alone of them doing a big crossover was very cool. Sonic Universe 45 with the All-Stars Racing Transform, it was fine. There wasn't too much going on. It was just kind of like them all doing a little witty banter. It was cool. But I think Sega and Archie at the time and IDW now are really dropping the ball on making comics for other Sega properties. I know that the IDW Sonic, for example, it's nearing issue, I want to say like 27 or something right now. And have you been reading those?
I have not. I actually tried not to read tie-in stuff from other media because I'm like, I just play a Sonic game. Like, I don't know. Like,
right.
If it affected the world and these characters would be like represented in a future Sonic game, I would be oh yeah, I'm totally into it. I want to see what the future could hold. but
Right.
I thought that's what Sega was going to be going for, where like they'll have a big arc randomly, and then it's like a tie into a big game. They haven't done that yet. We actually haven't had a game yet since the comic book IDW launched, because I mean,
Right,
it takes
yeah,
place
and
after
that's
Forces.
Right, and I've been reading all of them, and I mean this is obviously not our IDW Sonic podcast, but I just wanted to mention it because they're focusing a lot more on the original stories, which is totally fine, but I think it's a little samey with like right now there's a virus going on.
Oh no!
And in the real world, this is not a comic book I want to like read, because I'm looking at the previews for the next 5 issues, which is like 5 months out. They're still dealing with the virus thing, and I'm just like, end the virus storyline. Anyway, the other thing is they're doing a lot of spin-offs, but they are all focused on the original characters again. So it seems like what IDW really should be doing, in my opinion, is a ongoing Sega All-Stars comic book. And what happens is every 3 or 4 issues, you do a story arc that covers a specific Sega game. So issue 1 to 4 could be a Skies of Arcadia story. Issues 5 through 8 could be Streets of Rage 4 tie-in comics. So it's like people who are Sega fans in general are going to be buying every issue because they're like, what's coming up next? And then you can set yourself up for eventual crossovers where there's a lot more investment because you're coming in not only with knowledge of the game, but also like a new story arc that Skies of Arcadia had. So when Sonic meets them, it's not just like, oh, hey, Vice, how's it going? I like your blue. And he'd be like, oh, that was cool. Instead, it's more like you get little hints of what's going on in the universe and you're more invested. I don't know, like...
It would make these crossover racing games like people actually care about. And
Yeah.
So let's talk about
Let's
a
go on.
sequel. Like this
Yes.
is something that a lot of people have been talking about for this game since the first one came out. I even remember when it came out, people would be like, the few friends I had that played it would be like, oh, when's this next one's coming out? I want to buy it on Dreamcast. Obviously, Dreamcast died, but so this talk about a sequel goes all the way back to 2001 with Naruyoshi Oba telling IGN in June 2001 that we're considering a sequel to Eternal Arcadia regarding which platform we're still evaluating it. In September 2002, before Skies of Arcadia Legends came out, Rikio Kodama told GameSpy that the sequel hadn't started, but she really wanted to do one in the future. She said, I would love to make a sequel, but we were not really working on it yet. We don't know what platform we would make a sequel for, but the GameCube has priority since Legend is coming for it. Then in March 2004, Oba announced they started planning stages for a sequel. He said, the Skies of Arcadia is in planning stages at the moment. In late 2004, Rico came out in the German magazine and said, we had plans, but the other members are currently working on other projects such as Sakura Taisen, which means Skies of Arcadia 2 is currently on hold. Anyway, I would be very glad about a new episode with the Sky Pirates. So it's been a while, right? And the game is turning 20, and now Kinji Hirota, who did map system programming in the original, took to Twitter to express that he wanted a sequel. He basically quote tweeted somebody and he said, strongly, I really, really want to develop a sequel. And then in a follow-up, he did this in January 2020, so it's like recent. And that got like 5,000 retweets, so it's basically viral. And and there was a bunch of articles written on this, and then he said, there's a follow-up, thank you to all the comments, that he was really impressed that people still cared about the game, and that he was going to get all the comments and show them to Sega. And you know how Sega now is doing this whole, like, we care about fans, we're listening. Do you think anything's going to come out of this, or do you think this is just going to be another game that we never get a sequel to? Because I kind of felt like we were never going to get a Valkyria Chronicles 4, and we actually did.
Right, or a Sakura Wars 5.
That's for sure, yeah.
Yeah, so I'd say now I would not be so negative on the possibility. I feel like I feel like we would see Skies of Arcadia 2 before Jet Set Radio 3. And
That
I
makes
think
you mad, huh?
no, not so much, but I feel like if they are going to do it, it can't be a direct sequel because you're going to, unless you first release the original game in an HD remaster to catch people up, you shouldn't be making a direct sequel that requires people to have knowledge of the previous game. That's almost impossible to find unless you have a Dreamcast or a GameCube, and the GameCube one sells for like $80 now, and I don't even know how much the Dreamcast one is, but it's a lot. So I think what would be smart, is to do it, but not have a number, no numbered sequel. And what I think would be really cool is if it's set slightly in the future, so Vice is an adult now, and he's like a pirate lord, and maybe he's the villain. And so you play a new, maybe like trio of pirates.
Yeah,
taking on Vice.
I think that would be the smartest thing, kind of like they do with Valkyria Chronicles, where there's like, this is a new squad. You know what I mean?
Right.
I do want to bring up one game. I didn't put notes into this, but there's a PS2 game that came out in like 2003, maybe 2004, called Rogue Galaxy. It's a cel-shaded space exploration game, but it has like real-time combat. It's not really like Skies of Arcadia, but a lot of fans say this is kind of like if you want something like Skies, I guess, or anything you know, with the exploration, to get this game. Personally, I'm not a huge fan of the designs in the game, but it's cool that Square Enix kind of tried their own Skies of Arcadia exploration space thing. Outside of that, though, I do have. Let's get okay. I want you to guess, since you can't see the screen. How long do you think it takes for the average person to beat the main story of Skies of Arcadia?
60 hours.
I actually thought it was about 60. Well, considering that I played it, right? Like, I felt like it was forever. I looked it up, and they said, according to this website that, like, just categorizes how long games are, the main story takes 45 and a half hours. The main with extras takes about 48 and a half. And if you want to complete the whole thing, 100%. 61 hours, so not as bad as new RPGs like Persona 5 that literally is like 150 plus hours. If you get the GameCube one, though, it's you kind of shave off 8 hours of the game to just beat it. So
with the load times, right?
8 hours. Yeah. Can you believe that, dude? So that's all the notes I have. We went through all of them. We know more about Skies of Arcadia. We only went on for like an hour and a half, 2 hours, right?
Yeah.
Do you want to read the Patreon comments about this game so we can close it up?
Yes, I think just my final word would be that this is probably the definitive JRPG on the Sega Dreamcast. And I'm not just talking about like Sega developed, but out of all of them. Like, I think it beats Grandia 2 a little bit. I think it beats Evolution for sure, and I think it beats a lot of the other JRPGs. I guess, there aren't that many options on the Dreamcast. So if you are a Dreamcast collector, Dreamcast fan, and you have not played this, definitely play it. Because this is basically like if you have Metropolis Street Racer, if you have Rayman 2, like as, kind of like the peak perfection, this is up there too, in my opinion. And so, if you can find it, buy it. If you can't find it, why don't you tweet to Sega, ask them to remaster it or release a sequel, because I'd love to see it continue. So let's get into this. So yeah, if you support us on Patreon at any level, you get priority for having your memories read. We will read your memories. There is no pick and choosing. You will hear it. So here we go. We have our longtime supporter, Daniel Andres, and he says, Skies of Arcadia is super great. I still have yet to finish the classic RPG, but so far I love everything about it. The world, look, and story all just mashed together so well. I feel that it has a lot of charm and heart definitely put into it. Just a couple of years ago, around late January or so, my fiance and I drove about an hour. Drove about an hour from home one night to go explore other parts of our state. Remember leaving your house, George? That sounds nice.
I don't know what that's like.
Around that area, we found this neat little retro gaming store, and what do you know? They had Skies of Arcadia. Ever since then, I've been playing it every now and then, like I do almost every game that I own. Wow, aren't you lucky? I don't think I've played every game I've owned.
Oh.
Right now, I'm trying to play through Panzer Dragoon Saga. Again, bragging. Come on,
Bragging,
damn
dude,
it.
this guy's rich. I want to go live with this guy. Girlfriend
but it-
and Pendragon.
He says, but it won't be long until I get back to Skies again. Yeah, you should definitely get back to it. Quit bragging. Come on. Just kidding. TH here says, the game has a unique feel to it that sets it apart from other RPGs. It has a great sense of adventure to it, and the ship battles are exciting. I agree, TH. I really enjoyed my time in this strange world of flying ships. Love this game. I hope that Sega re-releases this game on the current crop of consoles as well as Steam. With the current boom of remasters, I'm actually feeling optimistic it'll happen. Come on, Sega. Seeger. Come on, Seeger.
It'd be a great PlayStation 5 game, right? Like Skies of
Hey.
Arcadia 2 and the remaster of this one.
I'd be all for it.
And that's all we have for this episode of Sega Talk. We'll catch you on the next one. What are we going to cover next time? You want to give him a teaser?
I believe it's not a game and it's not a console.
Oh, that's pretty good. And it's not retro either.
No, it's not. It's neutro.
All right, then we'll see you guys next week.
See you
Bye.
then. Bye.